Hey guys, DJ here at Top Tech Cards and Games. Today I want to do a tournament report for the NAWCQ. The tournament did not go exceptionally well for me. I went 6-3, but leading up to the tournament I didn't really make a lot of content because I kind of was locked in on to this deck for a while leading into the event, so I didn't really want to mess with other decks and post videos for things because I just didn't want to break off of the deck and play other stuff that much. So about the time of Bosch's release, I tested a couple things, Fire King Cosmo, and me and my friend Ross eventually came to the list that we played here, which he also played, I want to say the exact same main board at YCS Columbus to a top 32 finish, and we felt pretty good about the deck. We played Pendulum with Apex Avion and Kieran's. We liked it more than like Draco Pal variants. We liked it more than any Cosmo variant, liked it more than any Monarch variant, and liked it more than BA. Our matchups are actually pretty good across the board. The deck really loses to itself and to Kieran's from opposing Kieran's that you don't have a good way to deal with. So largely we have favorable matchups across the tournament. I say that Kieran mirrors are one of the hardest matches for the deck, and of course I played 3 Kieran Pendulum decks in my first 3 rounds of the tournament, but I only lost to one of them. So let's just go through the list and then we can talk about the tournament itself. We have 3 Magical Abductors. We're playing triple Terraforming, triple Sky Iris because of how the deck is built, so it's very easy to trigger Abductor. We also have 3 Ariadnes. Because of the triple Iris, it's very easy to set off. 3 Kieran and 3 Bunbuku. Games where you see Kieran are just easier to win than games where you don't see Kieran, so we maximized our chance of seeing it. Then we have our Performer Pal engine, which is 3 Sorcerer, Turtle Lizard, Monkey Board, Joker, 2 Odd Eyes Unicorns, and 1 Odd Eyes Phoenix. So those guys are Perform Pals, but also searchable with Skyris, obviously. We play double Unicorn because we have so many high scales or high level monsters in the deck, including an Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon and 2 Apex Avions. Sorry, get that guy in the shot. 2 Avions, which we played. Basically, this deck is made to lock out the opponent, though. We want to, if we go first, just lock you out. If we go second, we're going to try to clear your board and set up our own lock after that. We also had 1 Archfiend Eccentric and 1 Luster Pendulum. Luster was a last-second choice for me. We debated back and forth a lot between playing 1 Luster or the second Archfiend. We basically decided that either way we were going to side the one that we didn't main because we wanted Luster pretty badly in Pendulum mirror matches, and we wanted Archfiend pretty badly going second against basically every deck in the format. So we ended up maining the Luster, siding the Archfiend. I think it was a very small decision as far as the actual impact on the tournament, though I did open Luster against Domain Monarchs in a game where they didn't have any way to summon Ether, so Archfiend would have been great. But, you know, here nor there, it's kind of like you can't plan for that sort of variance. Spells, we have 3 Terraforming, 3 Sky Iris. This is like an unfortunate part of the deck. You really need to be able to get to your high scales as well as pop your Ariadnes. So you have to play 3 Sky Iris, which can be extremely bricky. Luckily, like, Iris plus Terraforming isn't bad because we have Secret Village of the Spellcasters as well, so you can search out a lock basically with the Terraforming, so it's only bad if you hard draw multiple Iris. Multiple Terraformings is actually great. Secret Village goes with kind of the lock my opponent out theme. Odd Eyes Fusion, one of the best cards going second, able to search off Sky Iris, and actually sets up a pretty good Floodgate type monster. Upstart Goblin, and then 2 Scolding, 1 Strike, 1 Warning. For those of you who aren't familiar with this choice of your counter trap lineup, it's because generally when you search out these 3, if you only get 1 trap, your opponent is not going to want you to have Scolding. Scolding is actually the best one you can have if you only get 1 trap, and Strike is the worst one. So when you reveal these 3, your opponent's going to give you Strike 99% of the time, and when you search for a second Ariadne, if you get a second one off, and reveal Scolding, Warning, then worst case is we got Scolding. So once we play our Strike, we now have a Scolding anyway. And that's really the kind of the configuration we want. You're never going to get given Warning unless your opponent doesn't know what's going on. So if we have 2 traps, this is realistically the combination you want the most, like 99% of the time. The number is obviously made up, but I feel pretty confident in saying that normally if you get 2 traps, assuming your opponent is not giving you Solemn Warning, which your opponent should not be giving you Solemn Warning, those are the ones you want. Go through the extra and then the side. So, you know, we have our requisite Luster, extra deck cards, Ignister, Dynaster, Magister. Nothing special here. I mean, if we didn't play Luster, these wouldn't be in the deck, but Ignister is so good in the mirror that it felt like the slot was well used. Both these guys have their uses as well. To be totally honest, I didn't summon either of them in the tournament. I summoned Ignister once. We have a couple rank 3s. We have Break Sword and Totem Bird. In Columbus and in testing, I summon Totem Bird all the time. I also use Break Sword all the time. This card is actually like an MVP in the deck. But I used Totem Bird a ton in testing and at Columbus, but at Nationals, I didn't summon this guy a single time. Then we have the Odd Eyes package, which Rebellion, Absolute, and Vortex. Just need those guys to send to the graveyard for Odd Eyes Fusion. Then the meat of the extra deck, your rank 4s. We have Trapeze Magician, Dweller, Direwolf, Castell, Utopia, and Utopia Lightning. I'm counting Lightning as a rank 4 since it's just an extension of Utopia. And then finally Utopia Beyond, which creates the sweet OTK with itself an Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, making your opponent's dude 0. So Odd Eyes does 5,000, this guy does another 3,000, and your opponent's dead. Out of the extra deck, like I said, I'd never use this stuff other than Ignister. Totem Bird didn't come up, but I would keep it in. That's not even like a question. These other cards were all kind of necessary. I won't cut any of them. So if you chose not to play Luster, you get some open spots, but other than that, I think the extra is kind of where it needs to be. And then let's just go over the side real quick. I have 3 System Down, which Cosmo going second was actually the deck's most difficult matchup, like Demise Cosmo, because their back rows plus like a Dark Destroyer is actually very hard to clear. So we ended up playing triple System Down, as well as doing pretty good double duty against Klee, but we ended up playing, well, I ended up playing 0 of either of those matchups, so that's where that led me. Next up we have 3 Mask of Restrict, my disgusting common ones, but, you know, they got the job done. Mask of Restrict backed by Avion and Scolding is just game a lot of the time, so it seemed like it was the best choice to side against Monarchs. We also have 3 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon. Just so key for clearing Anti-Spell and other floodgates. You kind of just have to play them, even though it's not actually like an ideal sideboard card in a lot of situations. We have 2 Amorphage Sloth as well. Sloth is kind of one of the MVPs against Burning Abyss if you can get this guy in play before they set up, so they're not able to use their extra deck anymore. As well as in Pendulum Mirrors, once your opponent kind of commits to the board, if you can clear it, then make Sloth, their extra deck is no longer giving them an inevitability, which is kind of big. We also have 1 Pendulum Storm and 1 Swords of Concealing Light. These are basically our side plan other than the Sloth for Pendulum Mirrors. They're both pretty good. This guy is good against Kieran. This guy is good against Ariadne builds. So they're both good in different Pendulum matchups, though both are very good going second. We basically wanted more, like we want more copies of both of these realistically, but given the way the deck is built and what you can take in and out in your matchups, you basically only get the luxury of bringing in 1 of each of these and the 2 slots at any given time in the Pendulum Mirror. So unfortunately, we aren't really given the luxury of playing more copies of this. This guy does double duty against Magic Spectre and Klee. This guy does double duty against Burning Abyss, being able to flip down their guys and lock them into that position so they can't summon Burning Abyss monsters, as well as flipping down Vanity's Fiends that most of them sideboard. And finally, we have Necro Valley and another Archfiend Eccentric. I already touched on this guy. And Necro Valley replaces Secret Village against a lot of matchups that aren't very spell-based and very graveyard-based matchups. This card is actually insanely good against Cosmo, shutting off all their calls and all their ships when destroyed effects. And against Burning Abyss, it's a lot better than Secret Village, especially when going second. So there's the list. Let's just go through the tournament. Round 1, I played a Pendulum Mirror against the Kieran Pendulum deck. Game 1, they set up and play Secret Village, but I was able to summon a spellcaster, clear their board, and they weren't able to play spells anymore, so I won game 1. Game 2, they go first and summon Kieran. I don't have a way to deal with it, so I end up losing the game. And game 3, I just draw like poop. I'm not able to actively play through any of their stuff. They eventually establish a field with Kieran's and stuff, and I'm not able to actually play the game through that. So I go down 0-1 for round 1, which is never a place you want to be, but also was a place I was in 2013 when I ended up getting second at the tournament, so I was discouraged, but wasn't too devastated about it. Rounds 2 and 3 went pretty similarly to each other. I played 2 more Pendulum Mirrors against, big monster Pendulum decks. And basically what happened is I won the roll both rounds, summoned Kieran turn 1 or summoned Avion turn 1, or went off with counter traps, and my opponents weren't able to play game 1. Then game 2, they didn't kind of go off with that same sort of, I don't know if their decks weren't built to go off that way or what, but they would end with like, Odd Eyes in play. The one round my opponent just like summoned Sorcerer and popped Odd Eyes off. And didn't set any back row, so I was able to, kill a Sorcerer, set my traps up, summon like Kieran, and they weren't able to play through my board ever. And then my other opponent just kind of got they drew dead. You know, I locked them out game 1 and game 2 they drew dead. So that's sort of what happens though. Like I said, this deck's worst enemy is its own bad hands. Round 4. After that, I played against my first Burning Abyss of the tournament. I 2-0'd him pretty quickly. I just summoned Kieran. Kieran's insanely good against BA, so when my opponent was trying to... It was PK Fire, so when they were trying to summon their Dantes and stuff, Kieran's just too disruptive against that deck. They don't play trap cards to really stop you, so unless they can just summon a pile of dudes and OTK you really have the advantage, especially game 1. Game 2... the same thing happened, but I was able to summon a Morphage Sloth after clearing his stuff. So he turn 1 goes Special BA, Tribute Vanity's Fiend. I Archfiend Eccentric pop it. And then just pass because I didn't have anything else I could do. Not going to commit any cards. Next turn he does the same thing. I pop it again with Eccentric, play Monkey Board, and Pendulum Summon Sloth. My opponent's just out of the game at that point because they're so low on cards and Sloth's going to stop their extra deck. The next round I played against Artifact Extra Deck Monarchs. Game 1 I go first and set up with Counter Trap, Secret Village, and a Spellcaster monster. My opponent concedes without me seeing their deck. So I bring in a bunch of MSTs and stuff, because that's just, during the games where I went first and my opponent conceded before my first turn, that happened twice in the tournament, I just brought in my triple MST and my other Archfiend to deal with like back rows, floodgates, etc. I figured that would be what my opponent would likely be bringing in, so I feel like that was the right choice, but I play an MST and hit an Artifact Sanctum, which didn't seem like it was going to bode well for me. But luckily my opponent wasn't able to really capitalize on it. They summoned a Monarch, but I was able to summon Avion and kind of clear their board from there, so without them being able to interact with me super favorably. So advanced to 4-1 from there. Then I played Domain Monarchs the next round. Played Domain Monarchs the next round, okay. They didn't draw exceptionally well. I don't want to like bash them too hard, but they didn't play extremely well in the second game. The first game they didn't draw well, and I just OTK'd them. The second game I had up Vortex Dragon. My opponent could have like slow rolled. They got the negate out of my Vortex. I played Necro Valley, and they just Twin Twisted it on the spot. Had they slow rolled their Twin Twister at all, I didn't have another monster in my Pendulum Zone to negate again with Vortex. Had they slow rolled their Twin Twister, they could have also hit either a Counter Trap or a Mask of Restrict. I don't know if they would have been able to play through it anyway, but when you play that loose, like it's likely you get punished. So they burned Twin Twister on just my Necro Valley, and I ended up having Solemn Scolding plus Mask of Restrict along with a 2500 Vortex Dragon, so they weren't able to get through that. The next round I played against Domain Monarchs again. That round, this is when I opened Luster against Monarchs when it could have been Archfiend. So I drew pretty unspectacular. I was able to summon a Kieran, but that was all I could do really, so it just got Stormforth and turned into a Monarch. Just turned into a Karaz, but then they were able to Domain and I didn't have an out to it. So I wasn't able to get game 1 there. Game 2 I set up, I don't have a great setup. My board is Secret Village of the Spellcasters, Mask of Restrict, and Bambuku. And that's not great. Like they can just special red layer, run over Bambuku, and just a ton of other things can go wrong, but that's what I got. And they draw for turn, play the Trap Typhoon on my Mask, summon a Squire, and then tribute for a Monarch. So I'm just out of the game, blown out on the spot, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. So I'm 5-2 there. I actually get a no-show round 8. So there's that. So I get to go into day 2, 6-2. Show up day 2, sit down for round 1. I'm playing against Burning Abyss. So I don't feel terrible about the matchup. Like my opponent's summoning BA monsters, whatever. They clear the board I made turn 1, including me, like Kieran bouncing and then Twin Twister in my scales. So they're very low on resources, and I'm out of Pendulum Scales. Do I have the way to establish new scales and get like a Kieran and a Bambuku at the very least on my next turn? But I draw, they flip Spell Fragrance, and I don't have an out to it. So that game is over from that point. I just can't get around the Spell Fragrance before they inevitably find a way to kill me. Game 2, basically the same thing happens. I don't draw any outs to... I bring in, all my MSCs and stuff as outs to Fragrance, but I don't find an out to it. They're able to deal with the board I make turn 1 and flip Fragrance, and I don't find an out before I go to 0. So that's my tournament. I go 6-3. I'm out there round 9. Kind of disappointing finish. I expect a lot more out of myself. I would have liked to, at least play to round 12, whether I topped or not. Going 9-3 feels a lot better than 6-3, even if the end result is you didn't top. But it is what it is. I think this deck is actually insanely good. I was very happy with my deck choice. I don't think I would have changed anything other than maybe swapping Luster and Archfiend, but I could argue about that choice for forever. So I don't think it's actually something worth debating too heavily at this point. At the end of the day, I do think it was a solid deck choice. I lost 1 round to my deck. I lost 1 round to Anti-Spell Fragrance, and then round 1, I don't know if I lost to my deck or if I played poorly. I couldn't get around their Kiryans. I don't know if I could have played better and done it, or if it was an issue with my deck. Like, had I played a Silver Claw or something, maybe I could have set up a way with my Sorcerers to kill a Kiryan. So maybe 1 Silver Claw would have helped. That was something we talked about fairly extensively and never ended up playing. But I don't think that one, like, one of my big problems at tournaments, and this is actually one of my problems with the way the tournament was run, is I play really bad in the mornings. I need to ease into the tournament and kind of get my brain, the gears turning in Yu-Gi-Oh mode. So after getting crapped on round 1, I luckily was able to get into the swing of things and win my next 10 games straight before, getting eliminated from the tournament, so it didn't matter at all. But so round 1, I probably played pretty loose. I'm not positive. I wish I had like a replay or something to look at, but I'm going to assume I played loose. But my next 2 losses were, I couldn't do anything about the Spell Fragrance, and I couldn't do anything about getting Domain Monarch with my hands. So it is what it is. That's Yu-Gi-Oh! I had fun at the tournament, though, and so I was, happy to be there, obviously. It was nice. When you do that, it's nice when you're in your hometown, so I could just drive home afterwards. So, got to look for the pros in life, I guess. But I had a lot of fun, so I will be at Gen Con for the next tournament I'm at. I'm going to do some, that's not like a YCS or anything, but I'll be there. If any of you guys are there, feel free to come say hi to me. I'd love to talk to some of you. But other than that, I'll be trying to do some content between now and then. Let me know what you guys are interested in seeing deck-wise. I definitely am going to do some Blue Eyes stuff. But other than that, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do yet. So let me know what you guys are interested in down below. And thanks for watching.